The fifth chapter, The Shadow of the King. There began to be a sense of completion, the letter Kaf, the gift of insight through experience, the tall tower of the Lamed. And Mem signified kingship and refers to reigning in life. We've reached the letters Nun, Samech and Ayin, the letters of a bright midday from, say, 40 to 50 years. The Nun is steady faithfulness. The Samech is the power to support and protect others. And the Ayin is deep insight. The Nun, then, is the next stage and contains the energy of Ne'eman, faithfulness. This is what God, our King and Father, requires of us. And this is what he himself supplies. We realized quite some time ago that God requires faith and faithfulness. But the special revelation that occurs for many of us in this chapter is that God will supply that which he requires. This has to be one of the brightest discoveries ever. God expects a lot, but he gives a lot. Over and abundantly, more than we could ask or think. Having left behind any bravado that we may have had, life teaches us about our helplessness, our need, and that it is God's delight to supply to us those attributes that bless him. Even the knowledge of our helplessness is his gift, because it is that knowledge that casts us upon him. He has allowed life to wound us, and now he heals us, so that we are more than we were before. I am crucified with Christ, says Paul, but I live by the faithfulness of Christ. I discovered that being faithful to God is, and always has been, an impossibility if I look for it in my own heart. The Nun is the letter of Ne'eman, faithfulness, not mine to him, as I might have said in my earlier years, but his faithfulness to me. Further, any faithfulness I have to him is supplied by him in the first place. It's like the child who receives money from his father in order to buy him a birthday present. In short, I learned to rely more completely on the supply of God in the Spirit. What he desires, he will supply. What a lesson this is. This is what God has been doing all along in my life, stretching me. On the one side, a heightened, almost unbearably sweet vision of the loveliness and power of God, and on the other, a heightened awareness of my own sin and unworthiness. The Talmud teaches that the word Amen is an acronym for El Melech Ne'eman, God, the faithful King. Just before the Jews were taken into Babylonian exile, God said, "Come." Not go. In other words, he was going ahead of them in exile and welcoming them to come with him. He wasn't sending them away. He was welcoming them to come. And he was comforting them. You see, he is God, the faithful King. El Melech Ne'eman. Now the Samech draws me on. The word Samech, cognate to Samech, means protection or support. In the earlier chapters of life, we learn of God's protection and support, but as the book of life is told, we learn that he, the rock, wants us to be rocks, shelter for protection, firm ground for those floundering in uncertainties and drowning in life's troubles. We want to be of some help to God and others. We want to take our place in the ranks of those who are not just takers, but givers. We look around, and the longing within us is always, can I support, can I protect, can I be of any help? We truly learn that it is more blessed to give than to receive. We start to become a fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy, and a man shall be an hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. Isaiah 32 verse 2. Now note the shape of the Samech. It's a complete, unbroken circle of protection and support. His for me and mine for others. As Jesus said, I do what I see my Father doing. A man shall be as an hiding place and as a rock, the shadow of a rock in a dry and burning land. Now the man spoken of in this verse is, first of all, Jesus himself, of course. But secondly, it's every follower of Jesus who has matured sufficiently to reach this place. We may have thought that we'd reached this place instantly many years ago when we were first captivated by the vision of Jesus and the gospel, back in those chapters in which the Yud of spirituality was speaking to us. But seeing such wonderful things tends at first to excite us to the point that we become anxious for those around us, and this doesn't help anyone. We generally pursued people in those early days, but this time it's different. The helper is described as a hiding place, a covert, a river, and a great rock. All of these things are alike in their steadfastness. They don't pursue the needy, but instead the needy seek them, and they are always available. This is the Samech chapter of our lives. We become a true blessing to others. We discover the satisfaction of serving Christ, and we find ourselves instantly in the realm of the letter Ayin. Ayin is the Hebrew word for eye. The essence of the letter, therefore, is sight and insight. That is to say, the ability to not only see, but to correctly interpret what one is seeing. Everybody sees, unless they are blind, but relatively few interpret correctly. They lack insight. The form of the letter explains it further. It is like a Y, with the two eyes at the top joining into one stem that connects to the heart. When the heart is pure, the eyes are trained to see God. As Jesus said, the pure in heart shall see God, Matthew 5:8. Elsewhere, he spoke of the good eye and the evil eye. The good eye has insight and the evil eye is darkened. In this chapter of our lives, we have developed an amazing ability. We no longer jump to conclusions, no more allow our judgment to be influenced unduly by our personal bias. We have learned to think clearly and to always read the best into a situation at the beginning. We've become humble and kind in our thinking. Our hearts are purer, and we tend to see God everywhere, the ability to see God. I don't mean him personally, of course, but his actions, his influence. Situations blossom and people respond graciously. And we know that he has been here preparing the way. He was always doing that, but we lacked insight until now. We are daily surrounded by miracles, the work of God, yet most people yawn and interpret it as a natural phenomenon. Not so the person who develops as God intended. God gives us a pure heart, and as he promised, we see God. The shape of the Ayin illustrates that the heart directs the eyes, and the eyes are connected to the heart. When God gave us a new heart, he also gave us new eyes. Does that mean that we see good in everything? Of course not. We are perfectly aware of the evil, but we see that the hills are full of chariots of fire, and God is in the chariot. This is the Ayin. God is becoming more and more imminent in this chapter of our lives. We are in his shadow, in the shadow of the King.